Eastwood.
Thank you, Mr Principal Deputy Speaker, and can I say we welcome this motion coming to the House today. We do express, like my colleague Mr Durkan, our disappointment that our amendment wasn't taken. Our amendment attempted to do what many speakers today have said, to try and widen out the responsibility for dealing with social disadvantage across the departments. It is clear that DSD have a central role in dealing with social disadvantage, but it's also clear when we talk about social disadvantage that we understand that poverty is at the heart of all that, and of course OFM, DFM have a real responsibility in terms of tackling poverty. I think we all know that things aren't rosy in the garden when it comes to the economy here. We have some very good things happening in my own constituency. There's a lot of work being done this year to try and lift the mood of the people and try and leave a legacy of economic good fortune. But figures released last week show that we have 30 of our young people leaving the city every week. There's 2,000 people on the housing waiting list, and we've one of the highest unemployment figures across these islands. So we do have to understand that things are very, very difficult, and that each and every one of us has a responsibility, not least OFM, DFM. And I just want to touch on that because it is important that we understand that this is wider than just DSD. When you look at the Social Investment Fund, we are finally now seeing, I think, some movement in terms of delivering on that. It's taken far too long. And I think we need to ensure that whatever money is spent there, that we do have a real legacy in terms of tackling social disadvantage. But of course, one of the real difficulties that we face in this part of the world is our very high levels of child poverty. And in fact, when we look at the figures, I think it's something over 120,000 of our children are living in child poverty. And last year, the Executive's own Performance Delivery Unit dealing with and looking at the delivery of the Executive and the targets of the last programme for government left a whole lot of lines still in red writing, which meant that those particular targets had not been met. There was a target to halve child poverty by 2010. That wasn't delivered upon. There was a target to work towards ending of severe child poverty by 2012. Obviously not delivered upon. A target to meet the reduction of 15% in the rate of suicide, that's still in red as well. And to reduce by 50% the life expectancy differential between the most disadvantaged areas and the Northern Ireland average, that's still in red too. There was also a target to increase the attainment levels in primary schools, with majority of pupils from neighbourhood renewal area to within 5% of the Northern Ireland average, still not delivered upon, Mr Principal Deputy Speaker. So we have a real difficulty. 120,000 of our young people, children, still living in poverty. I'm not going to stand here and defend the Minister for Social Development. I understand he has a very particular role in dealing with this, and it is very difficult when we look at what's coming down the tracks. All those things I mentioned are there already. 120,000 children still in child poverty. We haven't even factored in what welfare reform, the oncoming onslaught of welfare reform, is going to mean for our most disadvantaged children and young people right across the board. So I would encourage the Minister in his dealings going forward with the DSD committee to ensure that all that can be done is done to mitigate the very real difficulties that are coming down the track from welfare reform. But it is important, just to end on this, Mr Principal Deputy Speaker, that we all accept our responsibility within this House, and especially within the Executive. None of us can stand on the sidelines and pretend that it's Mr McCausland's fault or it's somebody else's fault. Each and every minister in the Executive has a responsibility to deliver the end of social disadvantage and the end of child poverty. And I hope that all parties take that very, very seriously, and that we understand that it's a cross-cutting issue. In fact, it's the most important issue to try and end social disadvantage in our society. Thank you, Mr Principal Deputy Speaker.
Call the Minister for Social Development.